press start.
Let's get into this spoiler cast for Star Wars Jedi Survivor. This is separate from our main show. If you're checking this out and you have not subscribed, please check us out every week on Mondays. Current Gen Podcast. We talk about all kinds of games from all the consoles, PC, all that good stuff. But this is just about Star Wars Jedi Survivor because the four of us completed the game and we've been wanting to talk about plot moments and experiences in the game, and we wanted to get into it, but we resisted. We don't want to spoil it for other folks, including Dan, who's on our show, who hasn't had a chance to play it yet. But here we go. This is your only warning. If you're watching this and you are mad about spoilers, that's your own fault. It's going to be called the Spoiler Cast. So deal with it. All right, so let's just jump right in. We're going to go through. I've got the chapter names pulled up just as a reminder for me to make sure we don't miss any major story points, but we don't have to follow it through like here's the beginning, here's the middle. I kind of want to we're going to jump right in. What were some of the big moments, big character elements or interactions? You could jump right to a twist if you want to, but I just want to hear from you guys. Like, what do you think about the story? What were some of your favorite parts? Anybody, go for it.
Well, the story, or just like anything about the game in general that sticks out?
Let's just
there's
open it up
wide,
whatever you want.
Okay, the first thing I want to mention is not really story driven, but like the thing I remember messaging Jesse and Rob as soon as I did it, I said, I think I just played the greatest like set piece in all of video gaming ever.
You're talking about the sand platforming piece?
Are you talking about where you fight the Reaper from Mass Effect?
Where Marin's like opening up portals and you're going through them and all that stuff. Like,
Yep.
And it goes on for like a long time, but at no point do I feel like I was never in control and that it was confusing. Like, that was the thing that I was impressed with. Was not only was it spectacular to look at and experience, but it wasn't like, oh crap, which way am I going? You only have 2 seconds to decide, you're dead. Like, it wasn't one of those. Like, it kind of like led you and made it obvious what you're doing. And then in times where it might have been like, oh, where am I going? It would slow the camera down like, hey, you've got time to figure this out. But it all felt very fluid, if that makes sense. But again,
I think it would have like ruined the scene if you died constantly through that.
That's what I was thinking. I felt like it was like a movie more than it was like gameplay mechanic. So that's why it felt like it was easier, but it was still such a fun experience that I was like...
Yeah. It still felt like a roller coaster ride. It still felt like I was earning it, even though I know that it was being really generous, So. It
was being very generous. But I would say, like, once I had already liked the game, but once I experienced that, I was like, all right, you would have to be absolute trash after this for me not to absolutely love you.
Yeah.
And then from there on, it never let me down. It actually
and that was even before the big story twist. Like, that was even before that. Yeah.
Well, and that moment also in the desert also sets up the big like romance too. That everyone's been like shipping since last game. So that was pretty cool.
That's true. Like, they actually worked together a number of times, but that was the time where like lives depended on it, and they worked together really well.
Yeah. Well, and it was just super cool, like as a Star Wars fan, because like the Dothmarian Night Sisters are like, their magic is like maybe even more powerful than the Force, as everyone just witnessed in this game. So to see like someone as strong in the Force as Cal and someone as forces and as fluent in Dothmarian like Night Sister magic, like working together, like it was just like super fan servicey stuff that like done the right way, not like cheap fan service, but just like you're talking about people like writing tons and tons of shipping fan fiction over the years of those two characters specifically.
Yeah. I loved that storyline. Cool. The Dathomir storyline and Marin storyline in the Fallen Order, I thought was some of the more compelling, memorable stuff from that first game.
Very well executed.
So I'm so glad that she was a really key component in this game. And I wasn't sure if it was going to be just kind of like a buddy comedy a little bit when you first reunite. I wasn't really sure. And then there's a scene where you're sitting by the fire and she kind of nudges you and wants you to put your arm around her. And I was like, this is pretty adorable, this little relationship they have.
I was super into it, man. And I like their flirtiness, like in the first game. Like there was some kind of playfulness going on there, but like again, for them to like lean all the way into it, which like goes into like a bigger theme of like Cal having attachments and you know how when the crew breaks up, you know, because like you meet Cal and he's not with the crew anymore, you know, and it like how it cripples him, how much he misses them and stuff like that, and how attached he is to all these things. Like it becomes just a reoccurring theme. But he's fighting against that stuff, you know. He's leaning into liking his new goth girlfriend, and you know, and you know, not letting attachments like defeat him, you know, which kind of leads up to that big like almost dark side moment.
Yeah, Derek, I agree with you. That set piece was not only one of the coolest set pieces I've seen in any game, and that rivals Naughty Dog's, who I think Naughty Dog probably does the best set pieces in video games in terms of that kind of stuff.
Overall, yeah.
And this was right up there. Like this I would have been like, oh, did Naughty Dog come in and help develop this particular part? Because it looks like it's that quality. It's so well done. But yeah, going back to the beginning of the game when Cal is captured, I thought the vibe at the beginning was great. It actually, to me, I got Return of the Jedi vibes because you've got a bit of a swagger with your hero now who went through a lot in the first game. And, you know, Luke showing up at Jabba's fortress, walking in, just using the Force and facing down mega enemy. No problem. And then Cal kind of did the same thing, just talking smack.
That's a good comparison. That's very true. Yeah.
I kind of got that vibe. Now I know this is the second, and that was the third of Luke's story, but whatever. I just kind of got that vibe from him a little.
No, that was it was a big confidence shift in Cal for sure at the beginning of the game. And I like all those characters at the beginning of the game too.
I did too.
Introduce you to and then kill off.
Yeah, I know. Well, yeah, you're like, well, so
I like all these people.
Yeah. I wanted to echo what
thought
Derek
the
said
intro was. Sorry, I didn't. Cool. I was just gonna say I thought the intro was actually quite perfect because of like how dark the tone was and the setup, and then after you spend about an hour and a half of time in that, like that whole setup in a dark city, then you go into a more natural, more lit up area, and it had that. It's not the same as like Breath of the Wild when Link's running out of the tunnel and you first see like how big the game is and how bright it is, but it still has that effect. And I know a lot of developers are doing that where they'll be like,
Elden Ring did it.
Yeah, let's start the game off real dark.
You walk out of a dark, dank place and see the world.
And Jeff, what were you gonna say about the opening?
It was about the set piece. I just wanted to echo something Derek alluded to with the developer and how they were able to strike a balance between making a playable cinematic and making something that is actually precision timed platforming. Because there are actually moments where I was on the easiest mode possible because I just wanted to beat the game and like feel the hell out of that story because I'm a feely guy. So in that part, you would think, oh, well, maybe it's easier in story mode. No, they didn't really change the platforming.
The timing is the same, huh?
Okay. Yeah, exactly. The timing was the same, and there are like
that's true. If you look at the settings, it only has 3 bars that change, right? It's all about your combat. That's the change.
It's your combat and the parry timing, the enemy health bar depleting, and how much the damage they do to you. I rarely had to use a stim, that type of stuff.
Gotcha.
So like the platforming was very much like, I definitely like fell straight down like 5 or 6 times because it's. Some of the turns or whatever, the curves of wall running or whatever, were timing precision based. So it was just like a really neat hat trick that they pulled with that. I don't know how they did it. Really crazy good.
Yeah. Agreed. Totally agree.
And I of course agree with you guys about the setting, the opening setting being like this confined space, but it's like narrative and linear for the most part. There are some shortcuts and stuff.
It's a fan favorite planet too. Like you're on Coruscant. Everyone loves Coruscant. You know, shows are really showing off Coruscant a lot lately.
Like I think you said it in another episode, or maybe in our chat, where Kyle, I think you said like, I don't think we've seen Coruscant to that level.
I had not to that. I forgot that. I'm pretty sure Bounty Hunter, the GameCube game. That stars Jango Fett. I think that is Coruscant. So
okay.
But this is the first time in 20 years. We've seen it.
I don't remember us being on street level. It feels like New York City, but grimier, and like you feel the Empire's stranglehold on that entire planet.
The closest feeling I've had to it was Jedi Knight Outcast, the Kyle Katarn game. There's a whole level. It's one when you are Kyle Katarn, so it's the second.
Oh, the one not as students. Yeah, I mean, I love that game.
The one that goes to third person mode because you become Jedi, basically.
Yeah.
Jedi
Academy.
So not Jedi Academy. It's the one with Kyle Katarn as the main guy. So I think it's just Jedi Knight 2, Jedi Outcast.
Jedi Outcast. I'm sorry. Yeah, it's called Outcast. Yeah.
And then Jedi Academy is where you create your character.
And,
anyway,
and Kyle Katarn's like the trainer. Yeah.
it
I
might
can't
not
believe
be.
I missed all these games. These sound so cool in that
They're
era.
dull, man. These games are so great.
Those two in particular, Jedi Outcast and Jedi
Yeah.
Academy, are great back to back. Still fun experiences. Very dated visually, really fun
Yeah.
games.
Agreed.
And but yeah, I can't remember if it's Coruscant or not, but it's a city planet, or it's a city setting. So it reminded me that this is the first time I've had that kind of vibe in a Star Wars setting where I'm like, ooh, they really nailed that feeling. Now going back and play that one, it probably looks very bland and textures are old and whatever.
Yeah.
And this is so detailed. I just started a new game plus today just to kind of to reset my brain a little bit for this conversation, and went through that opening section up to the first rest point. And I'm just looking around more in the details and listening to the conversation more intently, knowing who the characters are and what's about to happen. And the level of detail is crazy. Like if you look to the side, behind you, up above, like they've got so many little nods to fans of the genre, both movies, TV shows, and I'm assuming books as well. Just all of the lore that's been injected into Star Wars. Whoever made this game, the team of people who agreed this should be in there, they all know it way better than I do, and I love it. I love that they are just injecting all this love into that world. So even as you're walking with your hands handcuffed behind your back, just having a conversation, you can't really do much. I felt immediately like, wow, this was an impressive opening. I see why they started this way. It was really, really good. And I also like that the big bad is not the scary looking senator guy. That would have been kind of easy to make it another kind of semi-Sith looking senator dude, but again,
he turns into kind of a bitch by the end of that chapter.
Yeah, he gets killed pretty quickly. Like as soon as you confront him, you get what you need out of him. You bring him up to the top, and then Ninth Sister comes in and just stabs.
Well, that's another.
That was an awesome part, by the way, when she stabs him from a distance, and then he gets dragged. Like it shows just his feet kind of lift up and then get dragged across the top of the ship.
Pretty wicked.
I was like, that's so cool. That was a cool moment. Yeah.
That's one of my favorite moments from Force Awakens, I think, when Kylo Ren gets super mad at one of the troopers, I think it was Force Awakens?
I think so, and drags him across.
But yeah, he drags it, and you hear just the feet, like kind of like basketball shoes across and you just see the feet. I love shots like that.
I do too. It was well done.
Yeah, it's like using the Force, obviously, for even nefarious reasons. But then the whole fight with the Ninth Sister, not just that, but the way that the Ninth Sister, was it Ninth Sister?
The Ninth.
Do I have the number right? Okay.
Ninth Sister.
Ninth Sister died, and how he like recalled her Jedi name and stuff like that.
That's right.
That was just so cool.
I like how he
just showed how in touch Cal was with the Force since we last seen him.
He is, but he's also like, that guy's killing people, and I love it. Like he's got no qualms. Like, you are lost. There's nothing much I can do about you. I just gotta ice you. And like he like murders a couple people while they're on their knees, and I was all about it.
Yeah. True. And that goes all the way to the very end of the game, where it's kind of like their life was in his hands, and he was like, "This is what I have to do."
Yeah. He's
well, I appreciate that. Because I know in a lot of the movies, it was always like, look, I get that you don't want to play with the dark side if you're a Jedi, but at the same time, there were some times where situations where like, you got to end this person's life, and they would be like, let's just give you another chance, the millionth time you won't let me down, you'll come on to the light side. This game doesn't feel like the tone of these games isn't really that way. It's like, he knows what he's got to do. He knows his enemy. He understands that these people aren't going to switch back. He tries. It's not like he doesn't try, but he eventually sees it's not going in that direction. And that was actually what I was going to say, that another thing I really, really liked about this game was the way they did the villains, touching on what Tim was saying, where it's not that guy you meet in the beginning. He's just kind of a scrub.
But not even the Ninth Sister. She ends up being kind of...
I know, yeah. You're kind of like, oh, the Inquisitors are going to be a big deal in this game.
No?
She's
a little bit like Count Dooku from Episode 3, and it's like, oh, well, that's taken care of already.
Before Derek explains, I just want to say that the Wikipedia only talked about, before the game came out, the Senator and Ravis. That's it.
Yeah.
So yeah, go ahead. Sorry, I found that to be interesting.
So with the villains, what were you saying? What were your thoughts on how the villains began to be revealed to you and kind of unfolded? How do you feel about that?
First of all, I liked the what I'm gonna call the main villain, meaning the one that we figure out in the first I would say it's the second chapter of the game.
It is.
And he's consistently the villain for a while.
You can just say his name, Dagan Gera, right?
Yeah, Dagon. I really, really liked him as a character. He was actually one that I was like, oh, could you come back to the light side? I think you're really cool looking, and I like that you only have one arm. But his story, his backstory was like really good. They fleshed him out really good to show you why he was able to go from being a Jedi to going full on dark side. Really, he's actually an in-betweener. Like he's using the dark side, but he's not really with them. He's trying
him
to
and Cal have parallels, and they show that pretty clearly throughout the game.
Yeah.
And he doesn't really turn to the dark side until Cal wakes him up a couple hundred years later out of that back tank. You watch him change the crystal, right?
Yeah.
Like it was so cool because this is probably a lot of people's first time seeing a kyber crystal get bled. You know, that's how they get red. Is like you just pour all your anger and your hate into the crystal, and it shatters it. So that's what happened in that scene.
That's super cool.
That's
super
awesome.
cool, yeah. And they've changed that from the old like EU, which like old EU was like it was like a synthesized, like kyber, and that's why they're red and kind of unstable. But now it's all about like breaking what was once
your
magical.
Lightsaber has hatred in it. Basically.
Yeah. You bleed it in, and then when you purify them, which is what Ahsoka does, they become white. That's why her lightsabers are white. She took those from, Inquisitors that she killed, and then purged those clean.
Got it.
So that's the whole how all that stuff works, and to see that, which it sounds like it was your first time for a lot of you, it was super cool because that's deep lore stuff. You know what I mean? And now they're like, no, now we're gonna put that in one of the most popular video game series.
One of the
around
Star Wars Visions episodes deals with kyber mining and talks about how the dark side has corrupted kyber crystals.
Gotcha.
And made them red. So like you get some of that visual representation in that show, at least in recent memory. But you're right. I'd never seen the act of it. That was really freaking cool.
I wasn't totally sure what happened there other than he changed the color of it because he's evil now, but it's cool to know that the idea was actually like he shatters.
That's why he was saying all. That's why he was like his speech like has a lot more resonance now because he's talking about how what his hatred is for the Jedi.
I'm absolutely playing this new game plus more, man. You got me so
you have to. There's a lot going on, and like I said, it's extremely compelling. And one of the things I wanted to hit on was I wasn't just talking about Dagon. I liked that he was like the main villain, but I liked how they played the story out where he isn't ultimately the end villain. And I knew there was going to be, or I believe there was going to be a betrayal. Of course I suspected, I'm forgetting his name.
Bode.
I suspected him, but I'll be honest with you, I was set on it's Marin because they're setting the whole thing up. They're like, Marin is extremely close to him. She's extremely powerful. She's a little, I won't say
a tough boss fight.
She would be a tough boss
a
fight.
little,
it'd be a fun boss fight too.
Yeah. She might be,
She's a little gray, meaning she's not full on like goody two shoes. Like you can tell there's some stuff to her. So I was really expecting her to turn. I don't remember what part in the game where I was like, she's gonna reveal it. She's gonna turn on.
Probably when you went to check up on the compass with the old Jedi Cordova.
Yes.
Yeah, Cordova.
I love
Cordova is who Kyle and I thought was the guy.
Oh, you thought
he's not dead anymore? Okay.
She's like, he's suddenly not dead. Get out of here.
Isn't that the actor who does the Egyptian god from Moon Knight? Isn't that the actor who does that voice? Isn't that him?
I don't know.
For a second, I thought I recognized his voice, and I could have sworn
that's
the
same.
same.
From Mystic Quest. What's his face?
Yeah,
he looks very similar, but I don't know if it's the same.
Might not be him though. But Derek, I kind of like that thought because the story of this game definitely has Cal going on a journey of he's alone and he's feeling exactly what Dagon Gera was feeling in a lot of ways, and is feeling like, well, what's the point anymore? There's no order for me to answer to. So that's why he feels okay about his relationship with Marin that's starting to grow. That's why he even says after he kills Dagon Gera, and I wasn't sure. I was like, am I at the end of the game? This doesn't feel like the end of the game. That like I'm pretty sure that guy's dead. Like there's not going to be like a robotic version that rises up. Nope, he's dead. But then he says maybe Dagon was right. And he starts to say things that sounds a lot like him. So I actually had a moment where I did not suspect Bode. That was a shock to me, and I loved it. We'll talk about that in a second. I suspected that maybe Cal was actually going to turn bad, and you'd have to fight Marin because she's like you're attacking her.
Oh, okay.
So I thought you'd be bad, Cal. Fight her, she would defeat you and bring you back to the light side. I had a moment where I kind of because she said something like, "If you get lost, we'll bring you back."
If you get lost, we'll bring you back. Yeah.
Yeah.
A good line too.
Well, I kind of had a moment where I thought like, "Ooh, I wonder if you're gonna have to fight," because you go to the dark side during some of your battling, like after the Bode betrayal, and so you activate the dark side and all that kind of stuff. So it was, it's the game did lean into that, but just not in the way that I thought. I still loved the way they did it, where he's certainly on the precipice of like, there's some things that are very dark about him, and that he chooses to embrace, and the game makes you embrace. During that final boss battle, when you're getting beaten to death in the face, and after like that last phase, you guys know what I'm talking about? And it says, press both sticks to embrace the dark side. I didn't. I was like, I think this is the moment where I have to choose good or bad. Nope, you die, and I had to redo the whole fight. I was like, oh, okay, so don't do that. So you have to embrace the dark side. The idea is that Cal is really wrestling with light and dark, and I like that. I like that they're taking you through that journey with him.
Yeah, and I like that it's a scripted journey. Like, this story would be a mess if it was like you could go dark or you could go light. Like, I like that. Like,
I totally agree with you there. I didn't need to have this. I want to be a good boy. I didn't want that.
There's a place.
Do the bad ending. Which one's canon for the sequel?
I was gonna say there's a place for games. Like your coders, where it's like, hey, you decide what you want to be or whatever. I love those. Those are great.
They have their place for sure. Absolutely.
Exactly. But I don't think every game needs to be that. I think
this was not one of them.
Yeah, I think games should be able to create their characters so they can act them and flesh them out instead of like create a character and we'll give you generic everything. I like that Cal is Cal and that they did, give us the ability to change the way he looks, but we can't, he is who he is. And I like that he has his backstory. He can be fleshed out. And then I like that there aren't really any significant choices, especially on a series where it's like light side, dark side, which one you're going to be. They're saying, no, this is his story. You're going to get to experience it, but you don't get to decide it. So I kind of like that because, like I said, it gives the writers more control and they can move the story forward without having to go, well, which path are we going to ring true when we write the sequel? Like that type of stuff, that kind of breaks immersion when you're like, well, which one did they pick?
It becomes messy,
yeah. That makes me wonder if they ended it ambiguous. His relationship with the Force, makes me wonder if they ended that ambiguously because the third one will be a choice-based RPG. Like maybe they could do that.
We may actually get the Dragon
Age
was that game way.
So like Witcher 1 and Witcher 2, like there was a lot of choices, but it kind of always looped you back.
I don't mean
the same ending.
I don't mean Cal is going to be Cal, but I mean like in terms of like how much of the dark side you use, how much of the light side you use, that type of stuff. Are you going to be full blown baddie by the end?
The only choices in this were pretty minor, like how you're going to mind trick this guy. What detail do you want to focus on?
No matter what, you win. It doesn't matter.
Right, that's true. That's true. Yeah.
So, but it wasn't really like right or wrong. It was more like I just replayed that part with the senator where
I want to say this.
You get to do you want to use reward or trust as your motivation for him? It doesn't really do anything for the rest of the game. It's just that it just changes your interaction with him.
Yeah, I've always used it as like based on what the character would believe, I guess, what I feel like that character wants in that moment.
What I like about this is I feel like we're getting essentially,
but it doesn't matter.
It's like a movie trilogy, and we just get to play it.
Yeah,
and so
we're getting a really cool movie
I'm not
trilogy
saying
right
we are.
I'm like I really want a choice, like more choice in the third one. I'm just saying they could do it, but I would definitely prefer as well if they just wrote a full ass story with three games.
I would appreciate it more if they stuck to what they're doing. Mainly just because, again, I understand, like, even compared to the first one, gameplay-wise and the worlds, it definitely got bigger and what I would consider better. But the tone of, like, the story and the characters and all that is still being controlled by them, and I think that's why I have tons of compliments for it. And I think they should stick to that same tone because, again, once you leak in a bunch of choice and stuff like that, it kind of changes the ability to really play out the story they want, because then they have to spend a bunch of times going, well, what if the character, or what if the player does this? What if the player does this? And it kind of takes away from what I would consider the cleanness of the story, the ability to tell a proper story. So I would appreciate it if they kept it the same. You can absolutely, if you want to make the worlds bigger, you want to change some gameplay mechanics, all that stuff, go for it. But as far as stories and characters, I'd really like to just, honestly, they've done a good job with these two games. I trust you. Just do it.
Yeah.
I don't need to make the choices for you. Make the choices for me. Let me experience it. Because like I said, there's a place for these type of games. We don't need everything to be open world, free will, make your own decisions, light or dark. We don't need everything to be that. So it was a nice change of pace for me, especially with a lot of games that we get.
There's a lot of choose your path games out there already.
Yeah.
And like, choice comes in different forms in this game, and what two lightsaber types are you going to bring into battle? What perks are you going to bring? It's I like how the choices that are more gameplay mechanical based than story changing ways. So like I don't know, I like it the way that it is. So
yeah,
I love.
me too.
By the way, we didn't touch on him much yet, but I loved. Speaking of villains, kind of previously, but Ravis.
Yeah.
He kind of showed up and was like in the periphery for a lot of it, and then it was during his fight that I was like, this guy's actually got a really cool backstory, like a really cool backstory,
and like driving motivations are interesting,
right? And I love that they explored that throughout the fight. I didn't really need flashbacks or anything like that. They did it pretty brilliantly.
He's kind of like an honor-based warrior dude.
Very much so.
But he's been committed to a cause for so long that he cannot be swayed at this point because it's been
even though he knows he's dying
through it. You know what I mean? He lived all those years.
He lived all of it.
You're talking about a guy who lived 300-400 years going now, or maybe even longer.
So he's like, I've committed to Dagon for so long that it makes no sense for me to flip sides.
When he wasn't here, I was
just kill me. Yeah, exactly.
So and I like that. I thought that gave him some dimensions and stuff like that. And I like that he even begged Cal. I was like, just give me a warrior's death, man. Like you beat me. Just.
And Cal was just like, don't have to ask me twice. Like
Again, he's like another guy on his knees. I'm about to cut your head off, bud.
Yeah, that was murder number 2.
Murder number 2.
Yeah. I love that. And like Derek said about Dagon Gera, I thought the literal gray skin, which I don't know if there's anything with gray Jedi in the official canon anymore, if that's actually a thing, but I still got that vibe from him because he was clearly towing the line and eventually totally goes dark side, as we know. The idea of him having one arm too and still being super powerful in the way it kind of had a Sephiroth vibe to him. Like there was something just really cool about it. He was real
definitely
thin,
one-wing angel type inspiration there.
Yes.
For
but
sure.
Just that he was so extra to use a staff still with one hand. I'm just like, you're such a cool dude. Like everything about
that
you is so
and
cool.
I think it was the first fight where he used the Force to fight you with a saber. Like he was basically just
great.
I was like, oh, okay, that's how he's gonna try to kick my ass.
Yeah, he's one of those guys where it's like,
he was interesting. He was really
where I was like, I really don't want you to die. I really actually no, I don't want I'm anti-cheesy, so no, I wouldn't want it be like where Cal beats him in the fight. He's like, "Come to the light side. You're right. I was wrong all along." Like I wouldn't want that.
You wanted him to just live to the next game, basically.
Yeah, I would absolutely like for him to escape or something happen where it's like, I'll get you
to live to fight another day.
Right.
Yeah.
And maybe like a Black recruiting or something in the next game. Yeah.
Black Knight from Monty Python thing where he gets the other arm cut off, maybe one leg, and he's hopping around.
Right.
Still here, Cal.
Comes back with robot arms or something.
I'm still here.
And if you know a little about the New Republic or whatever, they were trying to send as many Jedi out to unoccupied areas or slightly occupied areas, the Outer Rim, kind of this Kobo was or whatever. But all those areas were infested with space pirates, which they bring up kind of slightly in this game. So it was an oppressive survival nature where it felt a lot of Jedi during this time felt like they were abandoned by the Order because they were just kind of sent out there and just kind of forgotten about to kind of not police but keep the peace, in those areas. And they would just get dunked on by pirates all the time. So him carrying that weight with him of him feeling abandoned and him wanting so badly to find a place, of refugee and stuff like that from everything else, it still rings true to the greater lore going on as well. So big ups that they even got so much like High Republic stuff in this game. It's super weird because
that stuff
they're playing really coy with that property. Like it right now only exists on paper.
It got very small coder and Star Wars: The Old Republic vibes. I was like, ooh, that kind of looks familiar. Like this design vibes of what I've seen.
Yeah, like this is the highest days of like the Jedi, so lots of gold and gaudy looking. Yeah, his like Dagon's lightsaber like very gaudy looking. Obviously, lightsabers don't look like that, and
even
Yoda's
Z,
era,
the new robot, the new droid friend. Like
good point.
Her design was like very different. Almost looked like a 1950s throwback kind of a thing.
Like Metropolis type.
Yes,
Metropolis. Really old movie Metropolis.
Yeah, and even the design of like the inner sanctums or temples or whatever, like they're just different looking than the some of the other temples that we explored, like in Jedi Survivor. Or,
even the way the doors open, they just look different.
Or I'm sorry, Jedi Fallen Order. Yeah, but absolutely. Like everything.
What was the I missed it. I guess I missed it. The stuff on Kobo that's like you can't really get near it and it swallows you up. Was there a story explanation for that, or is it just
the swarming stuff?
Yeah, is it just something that exists?
Yeah, those were like I forget. There was an explanation for it, but there was some sort of like nanobot or something like that got like polluted from whatever the array was doing. So
okay, so it was in their search for whatever it was called, not Kobo.
Yeah.
That planet, this refuge.
Panalore.
Not
Panalore, thank you.
Panalore.
In their search for that, they accidentally messed up the planet.
Something like that. That's kind of what I got from it. It was some kind of reaction.
There's
to,
no
like,
current
the array,
events
like,
that could possibly be tied
There's
to
no
that.
current events now.
Yeah.
Nope.
I'm not saying we're destroying our planet in search of another home. I'm just saying we could lead to that. I'm just saying that's an interesting cautionary tale.
Yeah, speaking of the worlds, like and I'm glad that they kept it pretty focused in. I was able to really get to know each planet and kind of revisit them. I liked it.
Yeah.
So this is not a criticism, but I was expecting 5 or 6 planets to fully. Like I was expecting.
I was surprised at how few there were.
Yeah, I was expecting there to be 5, maybe even 7, like full-on big open planets to explore. We didn't get that, but I ended up being very, very okay with that. I'm not criticizing it at all. What do you guys think about the planet selection they did have and the exploration that was there? What do you think about it?
But since the adventure or the sense of like what you're searching for was so closely tied to that original planet, and its moon and everything like that, like returning to those areas made sense. Because like Cal in the middle of some like journey to like save as many people as he can through some dimensional portal isn't gonna like screw off to Naboo and like hang out with the Gungans or whatever. So it's like it makes sense to kind of like keep it focused. But like
you do get an achievement if you do that, though. By the way, because there was one part that was like we gotta save Z, and I was like, what if I went to Coruscant? And I got a trophy from that.
There is a trophy for that. That's true. But yeah, it just so it made sense to me that there were less planets in hindsight. But like I was surprised while playing, and I was like, boy, are we not? There were more planets in the first game than there were with this game. Yeah. So it was surprising to me.
Yeah, although I thought they were varied, like Derek mentioned at the beginning with Coruscant, then you jump to Kobo, which is a very lush foresty planet, and you go to Jeddah, which is essentially they have to have a sand planet. Every Star Wars thing has to have a sand planet.
It just gets everywhere.
But it really does. So Jeddah, was a very cool planet though, like the design there and all the different areas, and I left a lot unexplored there, so I'm looking forward to going back there and digging in where I missed or skipped. So I like some of the optional stuff. There's plenty of optional stuff.
I think every planet I ended my playthrough with like every planet was like at least 88% explored. Like I was just like, you know what, that's good enough. And because I didn't do bounties and other legendary beast stuff, I assume that's probably where a lot of percentages would have come in.
Probably so.
But I explored the crap out of those planets. I really, really loved it. Even the tiny ones where it's like a moon base or whatever. Apparently there were way more layers to that than I expected. When you go revisit it and go back the second time.
The game does a good job when you go back.
You're
unlocking a new area, so you end up naturally just by playing the main story, you experience 70 to 80% of the map, which is really, really well done. It still gives openness for people to explore. There's plenty of side content to do, which I think if I do New Game Plus, which I won't do it now, but this is definitely like Fallen Order. No, I wasn't going back, and I've complained. I have my gripes about the game, mainly the map and getting back to your ship and stuff like that. I never want to experience that again. But this game eliminated all that, so I already knew after I beat it, I was like, I'm definitely playing this again. And when I play it again, because I already know the story, and I kind of talked about this in the chat, I don't ever want Souls games to have like stories like this, and I know that's counter to everybody else, but it takes away from the fun when you're playing the Souls games if you're focused on like, I got to get through this real quick because I need to see the next story. I want to beat the game. I want to see how it plays out. This game does a perfect job of like allowing you to experience however you want. It is a difficult game. Like Tim, you played it on normal. I played a lot of it on normal, and then when I was like, I want to beat the game, I dropped that battle.
I got stuck on a few different boss fights for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
the frog was the frog one of them, or did you even?
I never even beat the frog.
Son of Grog or whatever.
So it's like it's like the offspring of the one you hunt in Fallen Order or whatever.
Son of whatever. Yeah.
Yeah. And so I think I fought it like probably 4 or 5 times, something like that. And I was like, all right, I need to come back when I'm stronger. And if I really feel like, because all of them very FromSoft inspired. They all have patterns. All the bosses have very clear tells, very clear patterns. Like Ravis killed me pretty quick the first 2-3 times I fought him. And then I was like, all right, I've got his first phase down. And then by the time I got to the second phase of learning that, the first phase, I barely got hit just because I had it down. So like, by the time you finish the fight, you get through one whole fight of barely getting hit. Maybe not always, but it just feels that way. You feel like, boy, I dominated. And when you beat him, you feel like I destroyed that dude. And so that's how all the fights went for me. It was like, okay, I conquered this section. Now I could do this one. And getting through that first section was actually quite easy because I have it down. So I liked that. And Elden Ring kind of trained me in that way, I guess, in some ways. And I just really enjoyed that part of it. Even though it was frustrating in the moment, there were times I set my controller down and just thought, like, do I like video games anymore? Like, there were times when I got really annoyed. But yeah.
Well, just to like real quick, what my point was is that because I've seen the story, the second time I play it, I'm not going to rush through. It's all just going to be a reminder. So I'll be able to explore more, or I'll want to explore more. Plus, to be honest with you, I kind of did rush this game because I was playing other games before this one. Like, this was you guys' main one as soon as it came out. It wasn't my main one. As you guys know, I beat Redfall. And Xenoblade Chronicles 3. So I had other stuff going on. So when I finally got to this and was like, I'm going to press through, I wanted to beat it before Zelda. So I didn't get to really flesh out and do as much stuff as I want, explore as much. I know all the planets I ended up over 80%, like the ones you go back to twice. So I know I did a lot, but my second playthrough, I will definitely focus more on exploration, doing side content, and getting good at the combat, where I feel like, oh, I can just dominate anybody I want. That's one of the reasons I'm excited that they already have a New Game Plus, and in the way they had it already set up. Not all games are like that. Sometimes you have to wait, or sometimes they never give it to you. So I really like that they have.
I think Ragnarok had to stealth drop it 4 or 5 months later, and you're like, oh, thanks, but why? What was that?
Why now? Yeah. No, I think that some of the optional monster fights are super satisfying and fun. Like that first Rancor took me many tries. I fought him way too early. If I would have just been like, you know what, let me come back after doing a little more of the story, I probably leveled up 5 or 6 times.
First side mission you get though,
but I was determined.
It in your face.
I was so determined to beat it. So I finally beat it. I was doing so little damage. It was so so the second time I fought a Rancor, it was the same patterns. It was just in a different environment, and it was so much easier because I was like, oh, I'm doing damage now. Okay, this is actually doable.
Yeah, there's like 3 or 4 that I fought, I think, or something like that.
Rancor?
But yeah, the first one is like right when you get in Kobo, and there's like a cave, and you have the
I only
option
knew of the 2 Rancors. I didn't know there was 3 or 4. That's cool.
I'm pretty sure I fought a few. Yeah.
Nice.
I've explored quite a bit.
Yeah.
But yeah, there's that first, like, as soon as I landed the Kobo, I wanted to kind of go, okay, what's over here? Like, I didn't even care about the story at all. So I, at that point, and that's another brilliant part of the story is the pacing of it. But like,
good point.
So I went to that little side cave that you could just use BD1 to just kind of shimmy, or whatever you call that, to skate down, I guess,
zip
line down a pipe. And
totally normal.
Or I guess he's not really doing that. He's doing the hand thing.
Yeah.
At least there wasn't too much of that, so it's like, okay, come on, let's Come on.
There wasn't
Pick it
a
up
whole
now.
lot of like climb along this ledge while you have a long
Yeah.
conversation with a friend. There wasn't much of that at all, really.
Right, and I'm very grateful for that.
The
But yeah, that
platforming
was
was-
definitely one of the first
The
optional
platforming was
areas.
meaningful.
Yeah.
I think that's how I felt with this game. Like platforming was
Me
fun.
too.
It was meaningful. It wasn't janky. Like it made sense. Anytime I kind of missed a jump or something, I was like, I was doing something. I was being silly. I wasn't paying attention.
Yeah. There were some
So-
optional areas where I really lost my cool. Like there's an area in the swamp entirely, pretty much.
I hate this.
I was terrible at
Yeah.
traversal. There's one
Yeah.
part where you need to, actually you don't need to, but those two kind of Yeti type whatever.
Yes.
They're not really Yetis though, but those there's two of them hanging out.
Not Hothwampas.
They
Yeah,
killed
exactly.
me so many times, but I
There's
finally
two
beat
of them hanging out and
Yeah,
loitering, but in order to get there, you have to use the forced lift on 3 platforms,
Yes.
and you have to use it very quickly. And I was just like,
And
why
every
is he
time you
not
die,
targeting?
every time you
Come
die, you gotta do
on!
it again.
Like I was just getting so mad, and
Yeah, no, that part actually I got tripped on too because it kept on auto targeting like on the
Yeah,
wrong
it
pillar,
kept-
and I'm like, all right,
Yeah.
so this game's stupid. It's a
yeah,
one
this
out of
game
10.
poor design. Yeah, you do the same thing I do. I think where it's like bad game design, bad game design.
By the way, when I fought those two Yetis, like I was having trouble. I was like, let me focus on the weaker one first because I fought a few of these. They're
yeah,
tough.
one was actually
bad.
a legendary one that somebody told you to go fight.
Yeah, one is
and the other one
is
was like a cousin or something.
One has like the big boss health bar, and it's much
Yeah.
tougher.
Yeah.
But then I realized, then I was like, I just wanted to try something different. So I actually reset my skill points. I put most of them in the same, but I sacrificed a few to upgrade my mind control ability to make it last longer. And I mind controlled the other
that's
Yeti
smart.
over and
That's
over
smart.
again until it actually took about half the health off the main one, and then it was finally dead. And then I just had to face off with the main one, and it was down to half health.
I did that
That's
with
awesome.
the Rhino guys when sometimes I'd run into 2 of them, and I'd be like,
There's a epic
Yeah.
rhino one too, the yellow one, which was super annoying, but eventually, and that was one of the ones I stumbled upon just exploring that area.
Mhm.
So it's like the vial.
oh yeah, the
Vial it's like a yellow
yeah,
one.
he's like a legendary one.
a
Yeah, I know what you're
legendary.
talking about.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So I was-
that's the one I think one of the ones I left.
but it was one of those scary
yeah.
moments where I was like, I did not rest recently. I've got one stim left. Like I
Oh,
was
no.
not prepared for this fight. Like I
Yeah.
didn't go straight there from a rest point. Barely survived it, but that was very satisfying too. 'cause
Wow, I'm surprised
again,
you beat it at all.
the,
That's yeah, I would
was
have been
very
like, nope.
yeah, I almost noped out of there, but
Yeah.
you slide down a hill and you kind of have to fight them or die.
How many stims did you guys end with? I know you guys probably. I mean, I did rush through it too, but like I ended with like 12. Is that how many you guys had, or?
I had
Like
7.
8. Yeah.
Oh wow. So okay, I explored a lot. All right.
Yeah.
I was just curious. That's
Yeah.
really how you can kind of tell, like how many perk slots did you have, how many stims did you have, stuff like that.
By the way, if you do New Game Plus, one of the perks that, at least for me, it was automatically installed and active was to replace normally easy enemies with a difficult enemy in normal encounters.
Yeah. Yeah.
And they
saw that
don't
one.
tell you that, but that perk is automatically activated when you start New Game Plus. At least for me on normal difficulty, it was. I didn't ask it to.
Wow.
It was already
Wow.
installed. So that first part where you get your lightsaber back and the senator flies away and he sends his little. The troops, for some reason, are all taking turns, like it's a dance off. Like they're
Yes.
taking turns to come fight you.
Yeah, it's like the martial arts movie logic fight,
But
where it's like one
they're-
person at a time.
They're much tougher. There's a bunch of shielded ones. There's a bunch of ones with the armor on their shoulder, and then there's one guy with like the guy who does like the spinning electrical. I forget what they're called. Like they're the power troopers with the electric bow staff or whatever. And I was like, all right, this is way tougher than it was at the beginning last time. Last time it was just a bunch of like mincemeat you could just slice your way through.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, it definitely happens. Like all the normal little stormtroopers or whatever enemies are there, they're gonna put much more difficult versions. I was like, I don't want to do that.
I guess it's good XP
I don't-
farm, but I mean,
Yeah.
if you're surrounded, it's not fun.
That's not fun.
Yeah.
That's not. Oh, did you guys do many of the fractured things where you could go in and fight kind of in that little arena? Did you do many of those? I forget they were called fractured something.
I did 2,
Okay.
and then I only
Little
found 2
battle.
more, and
Little
both of
battle
those
challenge.
2 were not combat oriented; they were platforming. So I said no.
Oh.
Yeah.
I think I encountered 3.
Mhm.
I was way too weak to do that first one, so I was like, I'll come back to it. Never did. And then the other 2 were also combat centric and was able.
You know,
to,
I might have done 3. I might have done 3 combat then, because the first one was just rounds of enemies that you normally beat the crap out of anyway.
Yes.
And then there was one after, because I think that was like your first one that you ever get. And then like the ones after are like bosses basically. And then the 2 that I found, there's one on Jeddah, and I think they're both on Jeddah actually, where it just transports you. No, one's on Jeddah, one's on the moon base, where they transport you to like some platforming area, and it's even difficult to get by the first obstacle. Like
Yeah.
I couldn't even get past that. And when I watched the full video, I was like, I'm not doing all that shit. There's a lot of you jumping from zipline to zipline, changing directions.
And dashing through stuff.
Over back and forth. Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
And I'm like, no, I'm not doing all that. It can just be unfinished. It looks so difficult.
The fact that the dash, when you dash through like the, once Marin gives you the upgrade to dash through the force fields.
Yeah.
That resets your double jump and dash. So as soon as I saw that I was like, dude, they're gonna create some crazy platforming.
Yeah, and they're all in those little fragment things.
Or the only way to continue, like you'll never hit the ground. You're just gonna keep dashing through and then have to double jump and dash again.
Yeah,
and like,
it's even more fun when they add red screens, so you have to like dash around them to get to a green screen, and then.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's like Celeste level of platforming madness.
It's dumb, but it's got an audience, that's for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I thought that the storyline with Seer was pretty awesome too. Going back to the storyline of this, so Seer, of course, has she shaved her head, so she's got all Jada on us, and and she's running a library now.
Keep your wife out of my mouth.
So she's running a library on Jeddah now. She's trying to collect all the Jedi knowledge over the years and reestablish
recreating the archives.
Yeah, recreating the archives, which doesn't go super well because at some point after you're betrayed by Bode, not only is the Empire called, but Darth Vader shows up and completely wrecks all of her work. And there's a boss fight against him. And here I was thinking, oh, cool, another Darth Vader fight. I can't wait to just get wrecked and see whatever cutscene plays. I'm assuming Seer's going to die here. You have to defeat him. And yes, it does still end with Seer dying, because I thought that was a really well done scene with her going after him. And I thought maybe you stabbed him, but you kind of miss. And he ignited his lightsaber right through Seer. So it was a very cinematically well done.
It was very Star Wars.
Very Star Wars moment. Very well done. But that fight was freaking annoying because it had 3 phases, and I kept thinking, like, is this the cutscene where they're just gonna, like Derek said, move on to the next story moment here? But I actually didn't mind that. I understand what you're saying, Derek, where you don't want FromSoft games to have a good story because that reason. I completely disagree with you, even though I understand your point of view. I like having like the satisfaction of beating a boss after many tries is very good. Yes. I would love the added reward of now I get to continue this story that's very compelling and interesting with cool characters. I kind of like that about this game. It's very difficult. Boss fights kind of got me stuck. I had to learn them. I had to go all Elden Ring mode and try to beat them without making it easier for myself. And then I was rewarded with the game continuing, the story continuing. So I understand where you're coming from, that you're like, hey, that's frustrating. I don't want that. I would love for there to be a compelling Dark Souls story that's like, ooh, this is an interesting character. I got betrayed by so-and-so, and I want to see what happens next. Like I would love that personally, because I really liked that here too. But that's just personal preference. I think that was just me.
Yeah, it's definitely for me personal preference, just because of like my personality, where it's like, if I know the game's, create your own character, it's got lore, it's cool, it talks, they say stuff, I'm sure it's cool. I'm not one of those nerds that like studies the Dark Souls lore, even though I know a good amount of it. I just play those games and I'm like, I'm just here for the combat. Same thing with Zelda. Like, I know Zelda's got a story, but I'm here for the exploration and the combat. And when I'm focused on stuff like that, I feel like when I'm in a game where it's like story driven and it's heavy and I want to see it, I lose that patience where I'm like, come on, bro, just put it on easy. Let's go. Let's get through it. And that's kind of how I am.
No, I get it. I totally get that. That whole sequence, though. So Dagon Gera and Ravis have both been defeated, and you get the compass repaired, and it seems like, hey,
you're literally around a campfire about to sing Kumbaya.
You're all celebrating together. You make out with your girlfriend. Things are going super well. And it seems like you're about to make it to this hidden planet where you can finally be protected from the Jedi and raise your families in happiness all together. Everything seems great. And then Bode shoots up the place, throws a grenade, and runs away and sends the Empire in after you. So that was.
And you chase after him on that crazy chase scene.
You get the awesome bike scene.
So good.
Which, by the way, I was exploring before that, and he says something like, I never got to ride one of those before. And I was like, you're going to get to ride one of those.
Yeah. So, hey, buddy, guess what?
He's going to get to ride.
Get your turn.
But yeah, that part was pretty shocking to me. He kills Cordova with a couple of shots, very cheap shots too, which makes you instantly mad at him.
Yeah, it made me finish the game. I mean, I was I got to see this through. Like,
I was freaking loving Bode up to that point.
Bode was such a bro. I loved him. Yeah, he was so cool.
And I like it. He was even giving you relationship advice on Marin. He's like, come on, man. You like her. It was there's a conversation like that. I was like, I like this guy.
He went from Brode to Chode. What a
Yeah, he was a big chode by the end of it for sure. But yeah, I thought he was a great character, and I
Great
thought that
voice actor.
they had really
definitely.
good chemistry, like him and Cal, those two voice actors. It's just like they it seemed really easy to again ship their bromance or whatever.
Yes.
So I thought it was pretty alarming, even though in hindsight there's a lot of Bode going, I'll do anything to protect my daughter. So it's maybe in hindsight there were some crumbs and stuff like that.
He even there was a scene where he even said something about his daughter as he shot somebody. I can't remember what it was, but I was like, huh.
Kind of weird. That's
yeah, but
that was like
Bode.
And there were other moments too where obviously the moments leading up to it, he's kind of acting a little cagey. It's even Cal's like, "You okay, man?" He's like, "Yeah, shit's just kind of weird, man."
Yeah.
So there are some breadcrumbs there, but I guess I was so blinded by dude, these guys are pals, and even the marketing was this is Bode, he's your best bud,
his betrayal was a shock, but then I was like, okay, cool, this is taking me into
earned.
The third
it wasn't
act.
A twist.
This twist is taking me in the third act. Let's chase him down. There was going to be a fight. I wasn't sure if maybe that's the final boss battle or there would be more. When you face off with him on Jeddah after you chase him down.
When he first takes out his lightsaber.
And then he's a Jedi.
But then when he turns and does the force push on you, I actually said out loud, I was like, what?
Yeah, same.
That was so
you got to
well
double
done.
what? Because it was a good reveal, and then and he's a fucking Jedi, and he played it so.
That was so well done.
He played it so coy the entire game because he was like, "Oh, you're a Jedi. I've heard about you." I don't know. It felt like two betrayals.
Did anyone pick up on the fact that maybe he's more than just a guy with a gun who's good with a jetpack? I had no clue. That was a shock.
They're building towards that.
Dude, that force push was a great way to reveal it. There's a lot of good ways to reveal a villain.
Yeah, I thought it was going to be I don't know why I thought this. The other way they could have gone was a lightsaber or something, igniting or whatever when Cal's back is turned and he just hears barrel or whatever.
Yeah, sure.
But the way they did the force push was
because Cal's reaction was mine too. Cal was basically just what just happened, and I was saying the same thing. It was so good, and he dominated
the reason
in that fight.
They could hide, they could hide Bode's true intent. Even when he reveals why he's doing what he's doing, it's not out of hatred or anything like that. It's literally to protect his daughter and his future, and
because he already lost his wife.
Yes,
and he's not going to lose her.
Yeah. So him dropping, Kyle said, yeah, if I play it again, I'll be like, okay. He did say this a lot, right? But I heard him. It's not like I didn't hear him say, I'll do anything for my daughter, blah, blah, blah. You could tell he was a one-man wrecking crew, and all he cared about is his daughter. I always got that vibe, right?
Yep.
But as a father, that's normal. I would say that to anybody. I'd be like, I will do anything for my children, blah, blah, blah. If it's between them and you, you're dead, right? So that doesn't strike me as villain talk or I'm going to turn on you talk. That's why I think his intent the whole time was he was a decent guy. It was his hand was forced at the end when decisions were being made that put in jeopardy what his ultimate plan was. And then that's when he was just all right, I've got to do things my way because Cal's not doing what I need him to do. So,
also from his point of view, he needed to get to a safe place with him and his daughter. He found one with Tanalorr. And if he could get these two opposing forces, the Jedi who are kind of rebuilding in this archive and the Empire, and get Darth Vader to come, if he can get them just to clash and wipe each other out as much as possible,
he Palpatined them.
He can jet out and head to Tanalorr with his daughter and not have to think or worry about either side.
Live a really weird and lonely life with just his daughter,
Yes.
Yeah, I know. The moment you arrive on Tanalorr and she's just sitting there,
so sad.
Singing to herself,
it's a bummer, dude. Yeah.
And he's just, being brooding and stuff in the cave. It's this is not the future that you really want.
It's not the happily ever after. And his daughter knew it too, right? His daughter, that whole final sequence.
Yeah, that's why she showed him. Yeah, that's why she showed you where he was.
He was a Jedi survivor, much like the name of the game. He's a guy who had.
What's with the survivor name? And then
he had to survive during that entire time, just like Cal had to. So it's he survived in just a different way, and when he found a way to keep his daughter safe after his wife died with joining the Empire, that was just his path. But again, it never read to me that he was doing the wrong thing. He was just figuring out a way to put more days.
They even had a conversation before Cal went after him to Tanalorr. They even had a conversation that did not result in violence. They were just talking, and then eventually I think I can't remember what happened after that. I think Bode smoke bombed him and then disappeared. No, that's not what happened.
You mean when they're on the Imperial ship?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, so I wanted to bring that part up. I loved that whole part where Cal's chasing after him. You're dressed up like an Imperial to kind of sneak through, and I love that whole thing. And then you meet his daughter before he's back in their quarters or whatever. And that interaction was really interesting. I got very strong Kill Bill Volume 2 vibes. I know that's not everyone's favorite movie, but like when she encounters is it a little girl in that movie, right? Yeah. And so
it's Vivica A. Fox's daughter.
It's obviously the two adults in the room. There's some tension.
Yes,
there's the kid,
but there's this
trying to hide it from. Yeah.
And then he's sitting there holding, and Kill Bill, of course. Bill tells a story, and he's talking right to what's her name?
The bride.
The bride. Yeah, he's talking to the bride. Anyway, that whole sequence, I got very strong vibes there, where you've got two strong opposing forces, good versus evil, basically is what's happening, and a little girl caught in the middle who doesn't really understand. But and I loved that. And then, so as they
he even
talk,
came in, and it's just like, who is that, Daddy? He's like, that's my best friend.
That's my best friend, dude. That was very Kill Bill Volume 2 vibe right there.
Yeah, big time. I agree.
Yes. So but I love, that's what I loved about that. I know not everyone loves that movie, but I loved that part of that movie for sure. And I love that in this game. It was like this calm before the storm face off. And then he does like the big force push with the table and then jets out and then calls, like the entire
base on him
to come and kill him. And that's when you get your first experience.
And that was like on story mode especially. I don't know how it was on other difficulties, but it was
pretty easy. They did a good job. They did a good job with you being able to sweep through everybody pretty well.
Yeah.
And especially when it was like 80 enemies. There's so many enemies. Oh my God.
Those DT droids are the worst. I hate those guys. But when you go to dark side mode, they're way easy, which was cool. But yeah, I thought that was a really great moment. With
also the text that Cal gets away with, same text that Luke ends up with. Those are the same books. So at some point we're gonna see that handoff. Those three, he walks away with 3 books.
There's only 3 books
Luke
left.
has, 3 books that Rey has currently. So it's like they're creating kind of a MacGuffin.
I love that continuity. That's great.
Yeah, continuity MacGuffin that that's going to be passed along across the sagas, and of course we're going to get that new Rey movie that's probably going to show these books a lot. So to kind of see where they came from.
It's just going to be 90 minutes of her reading the books aloud to the audience.
Yeah, right. I mean, so to me, that means next game we get Luke. In some way, I mean, we have to see those books to see those books get handed off in some way. Yeah, I don't think he's gonna come in and be a major character in the game.
No.
That'd be nutty to me. But we'll have to see that in some way, And there are books about Cal Kestis too, so maybe it'll get handled there. But just interesting continuity, to be like, oh, look at those. Those are the sacred texts that Luke was complacent and mad about at the same time.
What'd you guys think about? This is the second time that I at least have seen Darth Vader in a Star Wars property where he gets his butt handed to him. Does that and let's be honest, Seer she tears him apart, and if it's not for that kind of I think pretty careless attack of hers at the end, she had him beat until she did that charging jump at him. She has him defeated, just like in the Obi-Wan show. Sorry, that's kind of what happens there at the end of that too. So Obi-Wan beats the crap out of him too at the end of that show. I don't know. Does that take away some of the, the terrifyingness of Darth Vader for you guys at all?
No, it just tells me how powerful those characters are. So when Obi-Wan gets over his Jedi mind block, obviously when he comes out the other side, he's a better warrior and a better Jedi and a better fighter, and he's able to best his apprentice, whom he's already bested before,
Correct.
And in this one, it's like Seer gave herself back over to the Force, put herself into the academic side of everything. She's probably learned more about the Force than ever, and to show that without actually telling it too much, you put her against the most powerful Sith in existence.
Yeah.
So we see her growth. She's holding the blaster.
She's a Jedi master.
We see her with the blaster last game. She's a Jedi master in this game, exactly. Yeah. And I like seeing that, even though it happened mostly off screen, I liked at least seeing kind of that progression in her character.
Well, I guess you do get to experience how powerful she is a little bit before
when you play as her, which is a cool moment.
And you she's just even on normal mode, no enemy was a problem playing with her.
It's just super
she
fun to
everybody.
To really show you how powerful she's become because she's given herself back over to the Force,
Completely.
And maybe there's something thematic going on there because these are 2 characters who blocked themselves, 3 with Luke, so Luke, Obi-Wan, and her now have all blocked themselves from the Force, but when they came back they were more powerful tenfold, so it's maybe there's a reoccurring thing going on there that they're willing to explore. But pretty cool, you know.
Yeah.
So
No,
no, it doesn't make him less scary because we've gotten a lot of scary Vader in that same show. Obi-Wan, he drags people like through town and breaks their necks and like kills innocent people.
Yeah.
Like it's creepy, dude. You
and
know?
even at the beginning, he's the one who's wiping the floor literally with Obi-Wan through the fire. Like so. Yeah,
and obviously the Rogue One like scene and stuff like that as well. You know, like we've got
love the Rogue One scene.
We've got
so
some great scary Vader. You know, so
when he puts the guy on the ceiling, oh my gosh.
Oh, yeah. And Fallen Order Vader, where he's just it's just a running away.
Cal gets Cal just there's nothing you can do.
Oh, and I like that scene. Yeah, that's another scary Vader moment where you're like, I got a jet, dude.
Yeah, I got to
just
get the
destroying
hell out
everything behind you. And I like that you don't like Cal doesn't phase. Cal's not on that level yet, you know. No. But it made sense to me that Seer was, you know.
Cool.
Yeah, that's how that was my perspective, is that they were more showing you how powerful the other characters are, more than he's getting weaker or he's not as powerful as we think he is. I think he can basically destroy almost anybody, but it also shows you that no matter how powerful his opposition is, he always overcomes. So you know, obviously we know about him from the original franchise, so he has to live. But the point is that it doesn't take away from who he is, because he always finds a way, which doesn't usually happen for the dark side. They usually fall short.
Right.
I did feel also narratively that he was kind of toying with her in a couple of the phases of the fight.
He wasn't doing.
He was making comments
and stuff.
Cocky
Vader.
He was like, "You've gotten more powerful," sarcastically and stuff like that.
Yeah.
When you dodge, he'll say something about like how quick you are or something like that.
Yeah. There was a certain arrogance that he brought to the fight that Seer did not bring. Maybe until the very end, where she got a little, you know. Like,
she got a little cocky. That's what happened. She got a little penisy at the end. That's what I call it.
Yeah, got a little penisy.
I mean, if you haven't watched Game of Thrones with the Red Viper, that's the ultimate lesson in getting too cocky. When you've got your opponent on the ground,
don't be too cocky.
Wear a helmet.
Yes.
There's so many other elements we could dive into at this game, but we're gonna wrap this up. But I'll let each of you, if you want anything else you want to say about the story or gameplay experience of this game. And we'll start with you, Jeff. What were your thoughts? I know that we both loved Fallen Order, of course, but what do you think about this one when it was all said and done? You flew too. You were like, I'm flying through.
I think this is one of my favorite stories in gaming, period. At least in the current era, I guess. I don't know if that's fair. I definitely I would add PS4 and Xbox One to that equation too. I can't really speak for the entirety of PS3 and Xbox 360. I didn't game that much during that era. Does Rock Band have a story? It's a good story.
I would say stories have gotten better.
Yeah, that's true. They're probably better than they've ever been. They're hiring like writers.
The acting's way better. The writing's way better.
Exactly.
Well, Jim, the like garbage guy, wasn't like, you know, that was the guy who was writing like games in the 90s and the early 2000s. It was like some in-house writer that they weren't.
Speaking of random names, my favorite character has to be Rick, the door technician. That was a totally optional mission. Not even a mission, just a side area you could explore on Kobo, where it's like, oh, hey, this is like an Empire base, and then you open the doors open, and it's just one guy.
He has a boss health bar, and he's running at you. And I just like
you're not supposed to be here.
Force stab thing.
Yes, because he's just a regular stormtrooper.
And it says legendary enemy defeated or something like that.
Yeah, it was awesome. Yeah,
they even injected stuff like that. That type of stuff also shows how much care they put into the Star Wars stuff, like the banter between the troopers and the droids as well. Just top-notch writing. I can't remember any of the jokes, but there's so many clips you guys can watch on YouTube if you're interested in catching up on those. But yeah, the story-wise, it was just, I mean, I'm a huge story guy, so like this is just one of the best stories I've ever played. Especially with the villain that's not really a villain; he's just a complex human being. It's kind of trying to navigate being a dad in a
and they all kind of
torn galaxy.
Yeah,
that's what's interesting. Every enemy was.
It's not your cliche light side, dark side. It's a lot of gray side.
Definitely.
Like even our light side character Cal has gray in him.
Yeah.
Maybe a little too much. You know, Marin has had trouble talking him down a little bit for a little bit there.
Yeah.
Well, and he's got a girlfirlriend now. And that's illegal.
Yeah.
You're not allowed to do that.
That's Jedi code, man. That's Jedi code,
bro.
Kyle, what are your thoughts on this thing as you?
I think I've talked about everything that I wanted to. I thought the story was great, but like I really thought it was a orgy of amazing aliens. Just so many cool, amazing aliens. every time you went to a new thing, like it felt like, oh, here's a new. I've never seen an alien that looked like the gardener, that's on top of the cantina. Like it was cool to just see new stuff and old stuff. It was cool to see the bar populate with all like the cool different species and stuff like that. And I just felt like there was so much like love and care injected into every corner of this video game for Star Wars fans alike, and for Star Wars or Disney, whoever controls the narrative department of these like continuity departments or whatever, to give this studio this much freedom to write what feels like a very important story, what's going on in the greater scheme of things, it speaks to me that there's a confidence of Disney allowing other people to tell stories maybe outside of their wheelhouse, while still maintaining some continuity there. So it's just, I feel like this is a big step forward for like expanding this universe in bigger ways.
Yeah, agreed. And I'm also curious about, there's that wise old lady standing in the cantina who you'll talk to. She calls you Sojourner, I think.
Yeah. The fortune teller type.
I'm very curious about, like, she seems like there's a lot more going on there.
Yeah, never seen that species either.
Never seen that species before, cool. And also she just sounds like she's obviously been around for a long time. I'm like, where are you? Like, are you a Jedi too? Like, there's something about her that's just different. But
one last thing, I love in-universe music, and the fact that like you can unlock more music and find more music, and like there was such a like lean into like, hey, these are what people are jamming out to, and in Star Wars. I like that a lot. It's something that doesn't get explored enough.
And Derek, what were your kind of overall thoughts on this thing as we wrap this up?
Same stuff I've said before. This is a really good game. It's probably the best Star Wars game that I can think of that I've played since Knights of the Old Republic. It has a great story, has great characters. I'm looking forward to whatever they do next. I even if they didn't even change anything significantly, like gameplay wise and all that stuff, if they kept it at this same like openness, everything stayed the same, but just continued the story, I think you've got a top-notch game. It really was worthy. It probably was worthy of even higher review scores. I don't know how much the technical stuff hit them on the review end, but I feel like this is easily a 9.
Yeah, I agree. What I loved about it, and we've talked about this before, when sometimes the best stories aren't necessarily world or universe ending stakes, and there were some of that. Those elements were there a little bit with Dagon Gera, I guess, sort of, but it really was pretty enclosed or encased in that area. It was going to affect those characters, especially that final act as you're facing off with Bode. That was really just a very personal thing at the end. It was very low stakes as far as the whole universe goes, but very high stakes for the characters that we've come to care about. So I loved it. I thought it was excellent. I love the way that it ended too. I am curious, what about Kata now? Like, is she going to grow up being cool with having just watched you shoot her dad as he was laying there? Like,
and
what happens
she's
to her?
probably force sensitive because it's usually in the genetics.
Yeah,
so,
and
is Cal going to train her?
And if Cal and Marin end up having kids, is that going to be some half witch, half Jedi sensitive, whatever crazy kiddo?
Please.
So, but yeah, I'm very much looking forward to what happens next. I'm absolutely going to play this game again. I loved it. I thought Fallen Order was my favorite game, I think, of that year, or second favorite at least of 2019. And at the moment, because I'm still only 3 or 4 hours into Zelda, this is my favorite game of this year. But it's certainly my favorite story. To Jeff's point, I think it's my favorite story in gaming in a long time, maybe ever. But it's in a long time. Mm-hmm. It's really, really good. So, all right, thank you guys for taking extra time to record the spoiler cast. Thank you all for listening, watching, and we'll see you on a regular show this coming Monday. See ya.